Officer Logan Westfield surveyed the bustling baggage claim at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, keeping a keen eye on his German Shepherd, Apollo. The airport's daily rush of thousands of suitcases was nothing new to them. But when Apollo suddenly froze, his body tense, ears alert, and a low whine slipped from his throat, Logan knew something was wrong. The dog was fixated on an unmarked black suitcase, frantically pawing at it with urgency. Logan's instincts told him this wasn't just any abandoned luggage. 3 days later, the suitcase remained untouched in the airport's security holding area. Logan had tried to push for a deeper investigation, but despite his repeated requests, nothing was done. Apollo had stopped eating, his eyes constantly fixed on the security door. The dog whined through the nights as if sensing something Logan couldn't yet comprehend. It wasn't until Logan managed to convince Director Palmer to approve an inspection that the true horror was revealed, a discovery that left Logan's blood running cold, forever changing his understanding of both cruelty and survival. Let's take a moment. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from. Now let's dive deeper into the story. Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, a major hub connecting the American Southwest to international destinations, handled over 48 million passengers annually. Its sprawling terminals, often filled with the hum of travelers, provided the perfect cover for smuggling operations, a truth Logan was beginning to uncover. Though Logan had only been working security at the airport for 6 months, his face showed the marks of much more life experience. At 45, the former Marine moved with a precision that spoke of years of discipline. But his demeanor carried a heavy weight, a burden from a past loss that haunted him. 5 years ago, his 16-year-old daughter, Madison, vanished while walking home from school. Despite exhaustive searches and an international investigation, the only trace found was her abandoned backpack near a canal. The Human Trafficking Task Force had eventually shelved the case, but Logan refused to give up. He continued to search, his hope never fully extinguished. It was after 2 years of spiraling grief and another year spent in therapy that Logan found a renewed sense of purpose in the K-9 unit, paired with Apollo, a 4-year-old German Shepherd, with a remarkable gift for detection. The bond between the two was instantaneous. Apollo's instincts, coupled with Logan's determination, made them an exceptional team. While Logan's colleagues noticed how Apollo helped bring him back from the brink, it was clear the veteran's smile never quite reached his eyes. Apollo doesn't react like this to abandoned clothes, Logan insisted to Director Palmer on. The third day, his patience was thinning. There's something wrong, I know it. He's never been this agitated before. Palmer, ever the bureaucrat, adjusted his glasses and sighed. Follow the protocol, Westfield. We've got procedures for a reason, but Logan couldn't let it go. Throughout the second day, he repeatedly returned to the holding area where Apollo grew increasingly frantic. The dog clawed at the door, his paws raw from trying to get to the suitcase. That evening, Logan stayed late, digging through what little information he could find on the suitcase. It had traveled through Bangkok, Dubai, Mexico City, and then Phoenix, a routing that felt suspiciously designed to avoid detection. When Logan tried to pull up more details, he was met with a dead end. His clearance wasn't high enough. On the third morning, Logan's resolve solidified. As he and Apollo set out for their morning patrol, the dog once again pulled toward the holding area. I know, buddy, Logan muttered, scratching behind Apollo's ears. We're not forgetting this. By noon, Logan was standing in front of Palmer's desk, arms crossed, determination etched on his face. Sir, if there's something alive in that suitcase, every hour counts. I'm requesting emergency inspection authorization. Palmer. rubbing his temples, stared at Logan for a long moment. "You're not going to let this go, are you, Westfield?" "No, sir." "I'm not," Logan replied firmly. "Not when Apollo is telling me something's wrong." Palmer sighed and scribbled his signature on the form. "Fine, but if it turns out to be nothing, this is on you." Logan nodded, his mind already racing ahead to the next step. Apollo stood by his side, sensing the shift in energy. "Thank you, sir. I'll take full responsibility." 5 years before, Logan's life had been completely different. He could still vividly recall that cold October morning when he first met Apollo at the Greater Phoenix Animal Rescue. At the time, Logan wasn't looking for a dog. He was barely keeping it together after losing Madison. The shelter manager had explained Apollo's troubled history. Chained up outside an abandoned facility, abused and neglected, no one had wanted him. Too damaged, too skittish. Logan, still deep in grief, hadn't planned on adopting a dog. He had only come to the shelter to make a donation in Madison's name, a birthday gift for a daughter who was no longer there. But when he met Apollo, something in the dog's weary eyes spoke to Logan's soul. The shelter manager explained that Apollo had been used in behavioral experiments. "He doesn't trust easily," she said. "But there's something special about him." Logan's heart broke as he looked at the German Shepherd, recognizing the same pain and brokenness he felt. "Can I have a moment with him?" Logan asked. Alone with Apollo, Logan sat on the cold concrete floor, his exhaustion taking over. He didn't try to reach for the dog, didn't speak. He simply sat in the stillness, feeling the depth of his own loss. After some time, Apollo approached him quietly, sitting next to him without a word, as if acknowledging their shared sorrow. "You too, huh?" Logan whispered, feeling the bond form. Logan named him Apollo after the Greek god of healing and light, a name that felt ironic given the darkness they both lived in. Apollo's scars were visible, both physical and emotional, but they were healing together. In the following months, their lives slowly intertwined. Logan began to heal, in part because of Apollo. The dog's intuitive nature helped him take steps toward recovery, something Logan hadn't thought possible. He started volunteering at the shelter, just as Madison had done before her disappearance. They were both beginning to find some light in the darkness. But now, with the suitcase that Apollo was so desperate to reach, Logan's world was about to be turned upside down once more. Whatever lay within that bag would forever change the course of their lives. Apollo gained weight. His coat regained its luster, and slowly the fearful dog transformed into a confident companion who walked proudly beside Logan rather than cowering behind him. Their breakthrough came when Logan enrolled Apollo in a search and rescue training program. The instructor, a ready-red police officer, noticed Apollo's extraordinary scenting abilities immediately. "This dog has something special," she told Logan after their third session. "I've trained hundreds of working dogs, and his ability to detect and distinguish scents is off the charts." With his background, I'm guessing Thassa research people were studying his olfactory capabilities. Apollo excelled in the program, particularly in human scent detection. While other dogs learned basic search patterns, Apollo seemed to form an almost supernatural connection to the training subjects. He could locate a person hidden in dense brush hours after they'd passed through, following the faintest trace of scent that other dogs missed entirely. "Have you considered law enforcement work?" the instructor asked Logan. "Fairport Security K-9 unit is recruiting. With Apollo's abilities, you'd be a shoo-in." The suggestion struck a chord. Madison had disappeared without a trace, possibly transported out of the country. The thought that Apollo's gifts might help prevent similar tragedies gave Logan a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since before she vanished. The night before Madison disappeared remained etched in Logan's memory with cruel clarity. A normal Tuesday evening. Spaghetti for dinner, Madison complaining about calculus homework plans discussed for the upcoming weekend. She'd been excited about a field trip to the Phoenix Zoo's Conservation Center scheduled for Friday. They're bringing in a speaker from the Montgomery Wildlife Foundation, she'd said, twirling pasta on her fork. Elizabeth Montgomery herself might actually be there. Can you believe it? She's like the Jane Goodall of tiger conservation. That's great, sweetie, Logan had replied, only half listening as he reviewed work emails on his phone. Dad, this is important, Madison had insisted, her voice taking on the passionate tone that always made him smile. Bengal tigers might go extinct in the wild in my lifetime. We have to do something now. Logan had looked up then, struck by her intensity. At 16, Madison Westfield had been all fierce determination and idealism. Her long blonde hair usually pulled back on a practical ponytail. Her blue eyes so like her mother's alight with purpose. I know it's important, Maddie, he'd said, setting down his phone, and I'm proud of you for caring so much. Her smile at his full attention had been radiant. When I get my degree, I'm going to work for Doctor from Montgomery's foundation. They're doing the real work, you know, not just studying tigers. From a distance, but actually saving them. The next morning, Madison had left for school wearing her favorite turquoise bracelet, a 16th birthday gift from Logan. By evening, she had vanished. The bracelet was never found. Now, 5 years later, Logan found himself standing at the threshold of the airport's security holding room. Authorization form in hand, Apollo quivering with anticipation beside him. The German shepherd, who had helped piece Logan's shattered life back together, now strained toward the unmarked black suitcase as if he somehow understood that what they were about to discover would connect directly to the wound they both still carried. Logan placed his hand on Apollo's head, drawing strength from the warm, solid presence of the dog who had saved him in more ways than one. Okay, buddy, he whispered. Let's see what you found. The security holding room was sterile and windowless, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the institutional beige walls. The black hard-shell suitcase sat isolated on a stainless steel examination table, innocuous in appearance, but for the way Apollo circled it, whining with an urgency Logan had never witnessed before. Let's do this by the book, Logan said, snapping on latex gloves while Officer Ramirez, who'd been assigned to witness the inspection, positioned a camera to document the procedure. Following protocol, they first checked for external indicators, shipping, labels, identification tags, anything that might reveal the suitcase's origin or owner. Only a small barcode sticker on the bottom provided any clue, confirming it had passed through multiple airports. This routing makes no sense for commercial travel, Ramirez noted, examining the documentation. Bangkok to Dubai to Mexico City to Phoenix. That's deliberately, Logan nodded, his military training making him methodical despite Apollo's increasing agitation. The German shepherd now stood rigid, ears forward, emitting a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the small room. Easy, buddy, Logan murmured, though his own pulse had quickened. He ran his fingers along the seam of the suitcase, pausing when he felt something unusual. Look at this, he said to Ramirez, pointing to a series of tiny, nearly imperceptible holes drilled at regular intervals around the edge. Air holes, Ramirez suggested. Before Logan could respond, Apollo barked sharply, once, twice, his signal for urgency. With gloved hands, Logan released the first latch, then the second. The case was locked, but the small TSA-approved lock was easily opened with his security key. He took a deep breath, exchanged a glance with Ramirez, and lifted the lid. The smell hit them first, a pungent mixture of urine, feces, and something musky and wild. Apollo whined, pawing at the edge of the table, trying to see inside. Jesus Christ, Ramirez whispered. Nestled in soiled straw and shredded newspaper lay 3 tiger cubs, their orange and black striped bodies barely moving, their eyes closed, their breathing shallow. One appeared smaller than the others, its tiny rib cage rising and falling in rapid, desperate breaths. They're still alive, Logan said, his voice thick with shock. Call Dr. Anderson from Wildlife Services now and get me some water, towels, anything we can use. While Ramirez rushed to make the calls, Logan carefully assessed the cubs. They couldn't be more than 8 weeks old, far too young to be separated from their mother. All showed signs of severe dehydration, their gums pale and dry, their normally bright coats dull and matted. Apollo's behavior shifted instantly from alerting to nurturing. The shepherd wed softly, trying to reach the smallest cub with his nose. When Logan carefully lifted the tiny tigger, Apollo followed, eyes never leaving the fragile creature. It's okay, buddy, Logan assured him, placing the cub on a clean towel Ramirez had brought. We found them in time. But looking at the cub's condition, Logan was uncertain that was true. The smallest one barely reacted when he moistened its gums with a few drops of water from a paper cup. Dr. Claire Anderson arrived within 20 minutes, medical kit in hand, her auburn hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail. At 42, she brought 15 years of experience working with exotic animals and the efficient calm of someone used to critical situations. Bengal tigers, she confirmed immediately, already pulling supplies from her kit, severely dehydrated and malnourished. How long have they been in that suitcase? Based on the routing, at least 72 hours. Possibly longer, Logan replied, helping her set up an improvised treatment area. These air holes are deliberately placed, Dr. Anderson observed, examining the suitcase while preparing for fluids. This isn't some amateur smuggling attempt. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Over the next hour, Dr. Anderson worked to stabilize the cubs, inserting tiny eye lines into each, checking vital signs and applying warming pads to raise their dangerously low body temperatures. Logan and Apollo remained, the officer assisting where he could, the dog maintaining his watchful position near the smallest cub. Will they make it? Logan finally asked, voicing the question that had hung in the air. Dr. Anderson's expression was guarded. That will larger ones have a good chance if we get them to proper facilities quickly. This little one, she gently stroked the smallest cub's head. It's touch and go. Another few hours in that suitcase, and we'd have lost all 3. Director Palmer arrived as the initial treatment was concluding, his face a mixture of disbelief and bureaucratic concern. Bengal tigers, he said, shaking his head. Do you have any idea the paperwork this is going to generate? Westfield Logan ignored the comment. We need to move them to a proper veterinary facility. Not so fast, Palmer cautioned. These are endangered species that entered the country illegally. There are protocols. With all due respect, sir, Dr. Anderson interrupted. These cubs require specialized care immediately. Protocol can wait. Palmer's phone rang and he stepped aside to answer it. When he returned, his expression had hardened. That was the regional director of Wildlife Services. They want the cubs transferred to the Montgomery Wildlife Foundation's Rehabilitation Center. The Montgomery Foundation? Dr. Anderson shed snapped up. That makes no sense. Their facility is in Texas. Apparently, Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery is in Phoenix for a conservation conference. She's already been notified and is sending a transport team. Palmer checked his watch. They'll be here within the hour. Something cold settled in Logan's stomach at the name. Elizabeth Montgomery, the conservationist. One and the same, Palmer confirmed. Apparently, she's the leading expert on rehabilitating trafficked tiger cubs. Logan exchanged a glance with Dr. Anderson, whose skepticism mirrored his own. "Sir, these cubs aren't stable now for transport yet, the smallest one especially." "Those are my orders, Westfield," Palmer cut in. "The Montgomery Foundation has jurisdiction here." As Palmer left to coordinate with Montgomery's team, Dr. Anderson leaned closer to Logan. "Something's no trite," she whispered. "I've worked with trafficked wildlife for 15 years. Standard protocol is to keep them in the jurisdiction where they're found until an investigation is complete." "You think Montgomery is involved?" Logan asked, keeping his voice low. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I've heard rumors about the Foundation's acquisition methods." "Nothing concrete, just whispers in the Conservation Committee." Apollo suddenly growled. Hackles raised, staring at the door. Moments later, it swung open to reveal a woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed in a tailored pantsuit, her silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a sleek chignon. "Dr. Montgomery," Director Palmer said, following her into the room. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Elizabeth Montgomery's smile was practiced and professional as she surveyed the room, but Logan noticed it didn't reach her eyes. Eyes that calculated. Rather thankered. "When you called about tiger cubs, I came immediately," she said, moving toward the examination table. "My foundation has the resources to care for them properly." As she reached toward one of the cubs, Apollo's growl deepened. The shepherd placed himself between Montgomery and the treatmenteria, ears flat against his head. "Your dog seems protective," Montgomery observed, withdrawing her hand smoothly. "He's very sensitive to the cub's condition," Logan replied, studying her reaction. Something about her triggered a nagging sense of familiarity that he couldn't place. Dr. Anderson stepped forward. "The cubs are currently receiving emergency treatment and aren't stable enough to be moved yet, especially the smallest one." "Of course, Doctor," Montgomery replied. "I wouldn't dream of interfering with their immediate care. I'm simply offering the considerable resources of my foundation. We have state-of-the-art facilities specifically designed for rehabilitating trafficked wildlife." While they spoke, Logan noticed Apollo had begun investigating the room methodically, nose working rapidly. Fettig circled back to the suitcase, pawing at the lining with increasing determination. "Apollo, leave it," Logan commanded. But for perhaps the first time in their partnership, the German shepherd ignored him completely. With a sudden tug, Apollo ripped through the suitcase's inner lining, revealing a hidden compartment. Before Logan could stop him, the dog had extracted something small and turquoise from the concealed pocket. The room fell silent as Logan bent to retrieve the object from Apollo's mouth. His hands trembled as he recognized what his partner had found. A turquoise beaded bracelet, the one Madison had been wearing the day Shedisappered 5 years ago. "Where did you get this suitcase?" Logan asked, his voice dangerously quiet as he turned to face Montgomery, the bracelet clutched in his fist. Montgomery's composed facade didn't waver, but something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition, calculation, the briefest flash O'Fallon. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Officer Westfield," she replied smoothly. "I've only just arrived." Apollo growled again, the sound rumbling from deep in his chest as he positioned himself at Logan's side, gaze fixed on Montgomery with unmistakable hostility. In that moment, Logan felt peace clicking into place, Madison's passion for tiger conservation, her admiration for Elizabeth Montgomery's work, the trafficking routes through Southeast Asia. His daughter had disappeared without a trace, and now her bracelet had emerged from a smuggler's suitcase containing endangered Bengal tigers, thievery, animals she had been determined to protect. "Director Palmer," Logan said, never taking his eyes off Montgomery, "I believe we need to delay any transfer of these cubs pending a full investigation, and Dr. Montgomery needs to answer some questions about how my missing daughter's bracelet ended up in a hidden compartment of this suitcase. The smallest tiger cub suddenly let out a pitiful mewl, drawing every own satin shin. Dr. Anderson immediately returned to its side, checking vital signs. "His temperature is dropping again," she said urgently. "We need to move him to a proper veterinary facility now, regardless of jurisdiction." Logan faced a critical decision: pursue Montgomery and the connection to Madison, or prioritize the cub's survival. The smallest cub let out another weak cry, and Apollo whined in response, moving back to the Unimaginable. The choice became clear. Justice for Madison would have to wait a few more hours. Right now, 3 innocent lives hung in the balance. "We're moving them to the airport's veterinary unit," Logan announced, authority in his voice. "Dr. Anderson will continue treatment there. No transfers to any outside facility until we'll have answers about this suitcase and its contents." Montgomery's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'll have my lawyers contact your superiors, Officer Westfield. This is shyly irregular." "So is finding my daughter's bracelet on a smuggler's suitcase," Logan replied, carefully pocketing the turquoise bracelet. "Apollo, stay with the cubs." As if understanding the gravity of the situation, the German Shepherd took up position beside the examination table, his protective stance making it clear that no one would approach the tiger cubs without his permission. The battle lines had been drawn, and somewhere in the tangled web of wildlife trafficking, corruption, and deception, Logan sensed the first real lead to finding Madison in 5 long years of searching. The airport's veterinary unit was a small facility tucked away in a quiet corner of the complex designed to handle quarantine cases and emergency care for legally transported animals. Dr. Anderson swiped her access card, ushering Logan and the carefully transported cubs into the sterile environment. Apollo followed closely, his body tense and alert as if expecting danger at any moment. "Put them on the exam table," she instructed, already reaching for supplies. "I need to continue fluids immediately and get them under proper warming lamps." Logan gently placed the transport carriers on the stainless steel table, his movements deliberate and gentle. The 2 larger cubs had shown slight improvement during the short journey, their eyes occasionally blinking open to reveal stunning blue eyes. The smallest cub, however, remained worryingly still, its breathing shallow and labored. "This little guy is critical, Doctor," Anderson said, carefully extracting the smallest cub and placing it under a warming lamp. "The sedatives used during transport have suppressed his respiratory system. It's common practice in wildlife smuggling, but incredibly dangerous, especially for juveniles." "They drug them?" Logan asked, anger edging his voice. "Standard procedure for traffickers," she replied, inserting a new foreline into the tiny tiger's foreleg. "Keeps them quiet during transport. Many didn't survive the journey." While Dr. Anderson worked, Logan possessed the small room, Madison's bracelet clutched in his hand. The turquoise beads felt warm against his palm, a tangible connection to his daughter. After 5 years of emptiness, Apollo stationed himself beside the smallest cub, his intelligent eyes never leaving the fragile creature. "I don't understand," Logan finally said, breaking the tense silence. "How does my daughter's bracelet end up in a suitcase smuggling tiger cubs?" Before Doc Anderson could respond, a light knock at the door interrupted them. Olivia Hartman, an airport logistics coordinator Logan had occasionally worked with, stood in the doorway. "Officer Westfield, Director Palmer asked me to bring you these forms for the cubs," she said, stepping inside with a clipboard. Her gaze immediately went to the examination table and something flashed across her face. Recognition, perhaps, or concern. At 34, Olivia was efficient and unremarkable in appearance. The kind of person who blended into the background of a busy airport. But something about her focused attention on the cubs struck Logan as unusual. "How did you know we were here?" he asked, studying her reaction. "Director Palmer told me," she replied smoothly, setting down the clipboard. "He's dealing with Dr. Montgomery and her legal team. They're making quite a scene." Dr. Anderson looked up from her work. "These cubs aren't going anywhere until they're stable, especially this little one." Olivia moved closer, examining the cubs with what seemed like professional interest. "Bengal tigers, right? 8 to 10 weeks old." "You know you're endangered species," Logan observed. A slight smile crossed Olivia's face. "I process a lot of exotic animal transports, legal ones," she added quickly. "These clearly aren't." Apollo, who had remained vigilant by the smallest cub, showed no signs of aggression toward Olivia, a stark contrast to his reaction to Dr. Montgomery. Instead, the shepherd watched her with what almost seemed like curiosity. "Have there been other shipments like this?" Logan asked, following his instinct. Olivia hesitated, conflictlier on her face. "I shouldn't be telling you this, but there's been a pattern. Luxury goods manifests covering wildlife shipments, all with similar routings to obscure the origin. Hawk claims them?" Dr. Anderson asked momentarily, looking up from the cubs she was treating. "Different couriers each time, but they all work for the same client." Olivia lowered her voice. "A private wildlife and servant foundation." Logan and Dr. Anderson exchanged glances. "The Montgomery Foundation," they said in unison. Olivia nodded grimly. "The very same their foundation publicly campaigns against wildlife trafficking while privately collecting specimens for what they call protected breeding programs." Dr. Anderson looked up sharply. "That's impossible. Montgomery has been at the forefront of tiger conservation efforts for decades. Her research on captive breeding is world-renowned." "The perfect cover," Olivia replied. "Why would suspect her?" Logan leaned against the counter, processing this information. "We need evidence that connects her to these cubs." The smallest cub suddenly let out a distressed sound, its tiny body convulsing. Dr. Anderson immediately refocused her attention. "He's seizing again," she said urgently. "Hand me that veil, the clear one." Logan passed her the medication, watching as she administered it with practiced precision. After 10 minutes, the tiny tiger's body relaxed, though its breathing remained worryingly shallow. "How are the other two?" Logan asked. Responding to treatment, Dr. Anderson replied, checking their vital signs. "Dehydrated and malnourished, but stronger. This little one, though," she gently stroked the smallest cub's head. "He's fighting with everything he has." Apollo whined softly, resting his muzzle on the edge of the examination table, eyes fixed on the struggling cub. "Your dog seems unusually connected to them," Dr. Anderson observed. "Apollo has a special gift for sensing suffering," Logan explained, resting his hand on the shepherd's head. "He was rescued from an animal testing facility. I think he recognizes trauma in other animals." As if understanding, Apollo briefly turned his amber eyes toward Logan before returning his attention to the cubs. "There's something else you should know," Olivia said, glancing toward the door to ensure they weren't overheard. "When I was processing the paperwork on that suitcase, I noticed it had been doctored. Someone in the system tried to erase all record of it coming through customs. Montgomery covering her tracks," Logan suggested. "Most likely, but they missed something." Olivia pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "Each cub has a microchip, standard for zoobered tigers, but these aren't from any registered breeding program. The chip numbers show they were bred at a facility in Thailand, one that's been under investigation for black market breeding." "How do you know all this?" Logan asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. Olivia straightened, meeting his gaze directly. "Because tracking these shipments is my job." I'm not just airport staff officer. Westfield. I'm Special Agent Olivia Hartman, Fish and Wildlife Service Undercover Division. I've been embedded at this airport for 14 months, building a case against the Montgomery trafficking network. The revelation hung in the air for a moment before. Logan nodded slowly. That explains why Apollo trusts you. He has annos for deception. Dr. Anderson looked between them. So what now? Montgomery has political connections and a spotless public reputation. It's our word against theirs. Not quite, Olivia replied. Those? Microchips are the first solid evidence of connecting her foundation directly to illegal breeding operations. But we need more. Something that proves she personally oversees the trafficking. Logan's phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Director Palmer's name flashed on the screen. Westfield, he answered, his tone professional, despite the tension coursing through him. Where the hell are you? Palmer's voice was tight with anger. Dr. Montgomery's lawyers are breathing down my neck. They're threatening to call the governor if those cubs aren't released to her care immediately. Sir, we've discovered evidence linking the Montgomery Foundation to illegal wildlife trafficking, Logan replied, meeting Olivia's gaze. And we have reason to believe there may be a connection to my daughter's disappearance. A beat of silence followed. Your daughter, Logan. Don't let personal issues cloud your judgment. This is about endangered species transport, not Madison. Her bracelet was hidden in the suitcase, sir, Logan said firmly. Fion she was wearing the day she disappeared 5 years ago. Another pause, longer this time. Jesus, Palmer finally muttered. Are you certain? Positive. Any time, sir. These cubs are evidence in what could be multiple federal crimes. Palmer sighed. Heavily, I can give you 24 hours before the higher-ups force my hand. Make them count, Westfield. The call ended and Logan pocketed his phone. We have 24 hours to build a case against Montgomery. That's not much time. Dr. Anderson said, concern creasing her brow. It's enough, Olivia assured them. Montgomery is still in the building trying to secure the cubs. She won't leave without them. They're too valuable. How valuable? Logan asked. On the black market, around $500,000 for all three. These aren't just any Bengal tigers. Based on their markings, they're purebred from a specific bloodline. Extremely rare in captivity. The smallest cub made a weak sound, drawing. Their attention again. Dr. Anderson checked its vital signs, her expression growing more concerned. His temperature is still dropping, she reported. I'm doing everything I can, but he needs specialized equipment we don't have here. What equipment? Logan asked. A neonatal incubator designed for exotic cats for starters. The closest one is at Phoenix Zoo's veterinary hospital. Olivia and Logan exchanged glances. Montgomery has one, Olivia said, in her mobile veterinary unit. She brings it to conferences to showcase her foundation's work. So we need her equipment to Sabbath Cub, but giving her access could jeopardize our investigation, Logan summarized, frustration evident in his voice. Not necessarily, Olivia replied thoughtfully. What if we invite her to provide equipment under strict supervision? It might give us an opportunity to gather more evidence. It's risky, Logan cautioned. So is doing nothing, Dr. Anderson countered, stroking the smallest cub's head. This little fighter needs more help than I can provide with what we have here. Apollo suddenly lifted his head. Ears perked forward, staring intently at the examination table. Following his gaze, Logan noticed something unusual about the smallest cub's ear. A slight discoloration that didn't match the natural markings. What's that on his ear? He asked, pointing. Dr. Anderson carefully examined the area. It looks like some kind of pigment or dye. She gently cleaned the spot with a medical wipe, revealing a tiny symbol that had been partially obscured. That's a property mark, Olivia said, leaning closer. Used by black market breeders to identify their stock. I've seen this particular mark before. It belongs to a breeding operation in northern Thailand called the Golden Triangle Exotic Farm. Can you link that operation to Montgomery? Logan asked. That's what I've been trying to do for months, Olivia admitted. We know shipments move from there to her foundation, but proving she knowingly sources from illegal breeders has been the challenge. Dr. Anderson was examining the other cubs. Now this one has the same mark, she confirmed, showing them the female. Cub's ear and possibly some kind of trachinitis. She pointed to a barely perceptible lump beneath the skin at the base of the cub's skull. That's not a standard conservation microchip, Olivia said, eyes narrowing. Those are typically inserted between the shoulder blades. This is something else. Using a handheld scanner from her medical kit, Dr. Anderson passed it over the area. The device beeped, displaying a string of numbers and coordinates. It's a GPS tracker, she said, looking up in surprise. Much more sophisticated than standard wildlife monitoring devices. Can you remove it? Logan asked. Yes, but dear. Anderson hesitated. If I do, whoever's monitoring will know it's been tampered with. Leave it for now, Olivia decided. This could be our link to Montgomery, if we can prove she's tracking illegally awkward cubs. The smallest cub began struggling for breath again, interrupting their discussion. Dr. Anderson quickly administered oxygen through a small mask, her movements efficient but tinged with growing concern. We're running out of time for this little one, she said softly. Whatever we decide about Montgomery and her equipment, we need to decide quickly. Apollo whined, gently nudging the smallest cub with his nose. The shepherd's eyes met Logan's, conveying assaillant plea that transcended species. Call Montgomery, Logan decided, fluid of Madison's bracelet heavy in his pocket. Tell her we need her specialized equipment to save the cubs, but make it clear she be under supervision at all times. Are you sure? Olivia asked. Once she's here, things could get complicated. I'm sure of one thing, Logan replied, watching Apollo's protective stance over the struggling cub. Every life matters. Madison would never forgive me if I let politics get in the way of saving these cubs, even if one of them might lead you to her. Dr. Anderson nodded, already reaching for the phone. I'll make the call. As she spoke with Montgomery's assistant arranging for the equipment transfer, Logan studied the 3 tiger cubs, innocent victims of human greed. The 2 larger ones were showing promising signs of recovery, their breathing steadier, their tiny paws occasionally twitching in response to stimuli. But the smallest one, the fighter, remained critical. He needs anim, Logan said suddenly, surprising himself. They all do. Dr. Anderson looked up from her call, a small smile softening her concerned expression. I was thinking the same thing. The female with those distinctive markings around her eyes, she looks like she's wearing a mask. Liberty, Logan suggested. For freedom. Perfect. And the larger male, Logan thought for a moment, watching the cub's steady breathing. Hope and the little fighter, Dr. Anderson asked gently. Logan's hand closed around Madison's bracelet. Justice, he said, the name feeling right in every way. His name is Justice. As if hearing his new name, the smallest cub, Justice, opened his eyes briefly, revealing striking blue irises before they fluttered closed again. Apollo let out a soft whine, his tail wagging slightly for the first time since they discovered the suitcase. Hold on, Justice, Logan whispered, a fierce protectiveness surging through him. We're fighting for you. Outside the veterinary unit, they could hear the approaching footsteps of Montgomery's team bringing the needed equipment. This stage was set for the next phase of their investigation, and perhaps Logan dared to hope, one step closer to finding Madison. Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery arrived with clinical efficiency. Wheeling a state-of-the-art neonatal incubator into the fader into the fem-fe-hasem like I've sent the neonatal incubator into the peter into the vader into the veterinary unit, while 2 assistants followed with additional equipment. Her silver-streaked hair was now pulled back in a tight bun, her expression professionally concerned as she surveyed the tiger cubs. "Quite dire," she commented, examining Justice without looking him. "These cubs should have been brought to my facility immediately. They weren't stable enough for transport," Dr. Anderson replied, maintaining her position beside the examination table. "And they still aren't." Montgomery nodded, her attention seemingly focused solely on the cubs. "The incubator is calibrated specifically for Bengal tiger cubs. It regulates temperature, humidity, and oxygen levels automatically." She gestured to her assistants. "Let's get the smallest one settled." Logan watched carefully as they transferred Justice to the incubator, noting how Montgomery's eyes lingered on the GPS tracker visible beneath the cub's skin. If she recognized it, her expression revealed nothing. Apollo maintained his vigilant stance, hackles slightly raised whenever Montgomery approached too closely. The shepherd's instincts had never led Logan astray, and his obvious distrust of the renowned conservationist online deepened Logan's suspicions. "Your dog seems very protective," Montgomery observed, keeping a careful distance from Apollo. "German. Shepherds make excellent guardians, though they're typically loyal to their humans rather than wild animals." "Apollo is special," Logan replied simply, exchanging a glance with Olivia, who was documenting every move Montgomery made with subtle efficiency. As the cubs were stabilized with the new equipment, Logan's thoughts drifted back 5 years to the desperate days following Madison's disappearance. The October morning had dawned bright and clear, a perfect Arizona fall day. Madison had left for school at her usual time, wearing her favorite jeans, a Phoenix Suns t-shirt, and the turquoise bracelet Logan had given her for her 16th birthday. She'd been excited about her Wildlife Conservation Club meeting scheduled for that afternoon. "Don't forget I'm staying late today, Dad," she'd reminded him, backpack slung over her own shoulder. "Dr. Montgomery's assistant is coming to talk about summer internships at the foundation. Need a ride home?" Logan had asked, already focused on his work emails. "No, Kylie's mom is driving us. I'll be home by 6. Those were the last words Madison had spoken to him. By 8 p.m., with no word from Madison and her phone going straight to voicemail, Logan had called Kylie Schaus only to learn that Madison had never attended the afternoon club meeting. Panic had set in immediately. Madison was responsible, methodical. She never changed plans without telling him. The police had been sympathetic, but not particularly alarmed at first. "Teenager Sipper for a day or two," they explained. She probably come home on her own. But Logan had known in his gut that something was terribly wrong. The days that followed blurred into a nightmare of police interviews, search parties, and flyers plastered across Phoenix. Madison's mother had flown in from Chicago, their shared grief temporarily bridging the chasm their divorce had created. She wouldn't just leave, Catherine had insisted to the detectives, clutching one of Madison's childhood teddy bears. She was happy she had plans for the future. Something happened to her. The first solid lead had come 3 days after her disappearance. Madison's back had been found near the Arizona Canal, miles from both her school and their home. Her phone and wallet were missing, but her conservation club notebook remained, the pages filled with her meticulous notes on endangered size protection. One page in particular had caught Logan's attention, a detailed summary of Dr. Elizabeth Montgomery's lecture from the previous month. Madison had underlined one sentence multiple times. Sometimes direct intervention is the only way to save a species from extinction. When the police had interviewed Dr. Montgomery, she'd expressed appropriate concern and offered the Foundation's researchers to help with the search. She remembered Madison, she claimed, as a particularly bright student with promising potential in conservation work. "If there's anything I can do," Montgomery had told Logan during a brief encounter at the police station, "please don't hesitate to ask." Madison's passion for wildlife protection impressed me greatly. At the time, Logan had been grateful for her support. Now, watching Montgomery adjust the incubator settings with practiced hands, he wondered if she had been watching him all along, monitoring the investigation into his daughter's disappearance while maintaining her benevolent facade. Officer Westfield, Dr. Anderson's voice pulled Logan back to the present. "Justice is responding to the treatment. His vital signs are stabilizing." Logan moved to the incubator where the smallest cub now rested on a soft blanket. Various monitors tracking his heart rate and oxygen levels. Though still critically weak, Justice's breathing had become less labored, his tiny ribcage rising and falling in a steadier rhythm. "The incubator is making a difference," Dr. Anderson continued, relief evident in her voice. "Liberty and Hope are improving too. Their dehydration is responding well to the fluids." Montgomery nodded, professional satisfaction in her expression. "Bengal tiger cubs are remarkably resilient when given proper care. My team has rehabilitated dozens of trafficked cubs over the years." "Where do they come from?" Logan asked casually, watching her reaction. "The cubs your foundation rehabilitates." "Various sources," Montgomery replied smoothly. "Government seizures, zoo transfers, occasional surrenders from private owners who acquired them illegally and realized they couldn't care for them properly." "And where did they go afterward?" Olivia inquired, her tone conversational despite the pointed question. "Our sanctuary in Texas house most of them permanently. Those with appropriate genetics may enter our carefully managed breeding program." Montgomery's smile remained pleasant. "We're helping preserve the species for future generations." "Noble work," Logan commented, his hand unconsciously touching the pocket containing Madison's bracelet. "My daughter was a great admirer of yours. She wanted to intern at your foundation." Something flickered in Montgomery's eyes. "Recognition, perhaps? Or calculation. Many young people are inspired by our mission." She replied carefully, "What's your daughter's name?" "Perhaps I remember her. Madison Westfield. She disappeared 5 years ago." A perfect beat of silence followed. "I'm terribly sorry to hear that," Montgomery said, her expression appropriately solemn. "The name does sound vaguely familiar. Did they ever find her?" "No," Logan answered, watching her face for any tell. "But I never stopped looking." Apollo suddenly growled, his attention focused on one of Montgomery's assistants, who had moved toward the original suitcase that still sat in the corner of the room. "Your colleague seems interested in evidence from an active investigation," Logan observed, nodding toward the assistant, who had quickly stepped away from the suitcase. "Martin was merely curious," Montgomery explained, gesturing for her assistant to return to the cubs. "We studied trafficking meds to better understand what the animals endure during transport." The tension in the room was palpable. As Montgomery checked her watch, the cubs appeared to be responding well to the initial treatment. "I've brought additional medication and nutrition supplements specifically formulated for Bengal tiger cubs. With your permission, Dr. Anderson, I'd like my team to administer them." Before Dr. Anderson could respond, Olivia stepped forward. "I'll need to document and verify all medications before they're administered. Standard protocol for evidence in trafficking cases." Montgomery's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, Martin," Show Agent Hartman the medications. Logan caught the slip immediately. No one had introduced Olivia as an agent. Olivia's expression remained neutral, but her eyes met Logan's briefly, confirming she'd noticed too. Thank you. Dr. Montgomery, I wasn't aware you knew I was with fish and wildlife. Your reputation precedes you, Montgomery concurred smoothly. The Foundation works closely with federal agencies on anti-trafficking initiatives. The dance of half-truths continued as Montgomery's team worked alongside Dr. Anderson, ostensibly cooperating while clearly pursuing their own agenda. Logan observed it all, noting every glance between Montgomery and her assistants. Every moment. They thought no one was watching. 4 years ago, the investigation into Madison's Ipoprin had grown cold. With no new leads and increasing pressure to allocate resources to active cases, the detective assigned to Madison's file had called Logan in for what amounted to a closure meeting. We're not giving up, Detective Reeves had assured him in the small interview room at Phoenix PD headquarters. But I want to be honest with you about where we stand. Logan had nodded numbly, already anticipating what would come next. Cases like this, where there's no ransom demand, no body found, no clear evidence of what happened. They're the hardest to solve. Reeves had pushed a folder across the table. We followed every lead, interviewed everyone in Madison's life multiple times, checked every security camera within miles of where her backpack was found. And Logan had prompted, though he already knew the answer, and we've hit a wall. Most likely, scenario is that Madison was targeted for human trafficking. The canal where her backpack was found is close to Interstate 10, a main corridor for moving people out of the country. So, you think she's not in Arizona anymore? It wasn't a question. Reeves had sighed heavily. Probably not. Possibly not even in the country. These networks are sophisticated, Mr. Westfield. They move quickly, change identities, cross borders through private channels. So that's it. You're just giving up. Logan's voice had risen despite his effort to remain calm. No, sir. The case remains open, but active investigation is being scaled back unless new evidence emerges. Reeves had met his gaze directly. I'm sorry. I have a daughter too. I can't imagine what you're going through. That night, Logan had hit rock bottom. He'd sat on Madison's bed, surrounded by her things, the collection of wildlife books, the conservation posters, the stuffed tiger she'd kept since childhood, and felt the full weight of his failure as a father. He hadn't protected her, hadn't found her, might never see her again. The service revolver had fell Phoebe in his hands. See you next time, thanks asterisk.